Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now for your host, Matt Haney.
All right. Give me an introduction. Tell me who you are. Tell me how you know me, and tell me what you do for work and while we're here.
Adam Boyd, I know Matt Haney because our paths have crossed ever since you were at Trigger Point, and then you were at Hyperware, and then you went into the rainwater collection business.
Yeah.
And so we're probably 12
to 15 years
in.
Something like that.
And I've always enjoyed your honesty, your creativity, and some of the things you've done. And I even remember some of the nonprofit work your wife's done. And I had the privilege of attending that dinner on South Congress years ago.
That's so good.
So
good
about me,
what do you do for work?
What do I do for work? I help companies grow the sales organization, not just in terms of headcount, but in terms of actual production and results. And when I'm doing that,
A little bit about your background. Where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
I got here because I came out of college and thought, I'm going to coach high school football. I moved to Texas to teach and coach, worked 100-hour weeks, coach high school football. And I've never worked as hard since as I did that year. Found my way into business school because we all go to business school if we don't know what we're going to do next. And I then got out and I landed in a sales training company. I didn't even realize what they did. I just knew the guy knew something about sales and I could learn from him. That tells you how much thinking I put into it. And right. I cut my teeth cold calling on CEOs. I had to sit in a windowless room without a clock and just call on CEOs all day. And we would sell training. We would invite them into events. That was my job. And then we'd go from there. So now what I do is I do this. I've run sales for a couple companies. I've invested in a business or two. And
if you had to guess off the top of your head, how many different companies do you think you've touched in terms of giving, again, down to I'm asking this question because the breadth and depth of your experience is incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot of times, how many people have you worked with? And it's always, how many people sales organizations you think you've seen or been engaged with in your career?
150.
I was going to say over 100 for sure. And that's really relevant because if you've seen 150 different sales organizations, you've seen just about every model that exists, every type of person, every revenue structure, every excuse out there, I'm guessing.
You've seen a lot. And there's stuff I haven't seen that I will run into and I just make adjustments because I've got some tools in my toolkit. And there's some great people out there who've done some things. And for your clients, one of the things they need to look at when they're getting advice is what's the background and what's the framework this person's operating in. Yeah. And because a lot of times we'll say, hey, we speak as if something is like gospel truth, but we don't go over here and think through, well, what are the parameters that exists in?
Right. Interesting. Yeah. And I haven't seen as many sales organizations as you have. And frankly, there's a little bit of a blind spot and maybe insecurity, head trash, if you will, that keeps me from feeling incredibly confident in the sales organizations. And I'll give you an example. We just spent one of my clients in the mechanical services business. They do HVAC and plumbing for large industrial buildings, retrofits, think schools, hospitals, not necessarily big office buildings or high rises, big state contracts. University of Texas is a client. So anyway, I tell you that because we need to hire a business development rep, high level, senior experience. We found a gentleman who has 15 years of experience as a project manager in that space, turned business development rep for 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Incredible find, great experience, can talk the talk to everybody because he's managed the projects. And later in his career wanted to switch to business development. And we were able to get him together, but now it's like, I got to onboard this guy. I'm like, oh shit. Remember, I go back to my Sandler days, the trainings I sat with Adam Boyd, and all I can think about is my cookbook. I just need to build my cookbook.
Right.
I just need to set this guy up. And remember, I did a culture index with him, so I know how he thinks. I know where he lies. I got all the backstory. right? But then I'm going, man, I really should put a little more emphasis into this. So we're right in the middle of building the cookbook, doing our ideal client profile,
Good.
and got him plugged into the CRM. He's a late adopter to CRMs, but totally understands the value of them and the fact that if you set it and forget it, I use the Ronco reference. If you build the CRM to do the work, the CRM will do the work for you. Eventually,
Yeah.
it'll keep you on task. It'll keep you on follow-ups.
Yes.
But then I'm like, okay, you got it. I've officially done all I know how to do to get you trained up as the BD rep.
Right. Well, here are a few things that people need to think about in onboarding. Assuming they've hired the right person, they need to be, just what you're talking about right now, they need to be crystal clear on what's expected and what's needed to be successful in the role. Not what's nice, what's absolutely non-negotiable. These are the things that you need to do, the frequency with which you need to do them, and these are the outcomes that will result from that. Then there are some non-negotiables that aren't just about prospecting calls and getting out and doing the work. There are things like CRM. More companies than want to admit it fight with their sales team over leveraging a CRM. You've 100%. Got people who don't do it. I mean, I've seen new sales leaders who don't really understand it, who just cut it because they're like, well, it's an expense. I tell companies, I'm like, your CRM could be one of the biggest assets you have when you go to sell. Right.
100%.
It's
got every contact you ever have. There's not, if you've been in the business for 20 years and you know your target market and it's somewhat niche, there's not one person you haven't touched or seen. Right. It's Absolutely. Like having it's a database of opportunities and all the history you have with it. Anyway, I'm a fan, but you hit the nail on the head. It's buying from the top down.
Yeah,
it really is. And I'm talking to my CEO who they're using Salesforce, which people love and hate it. But he has invested in building it out. He's had a consultant help him go through it. We're just now getting automation set up. So it's a good scenario. Good. But I know a lot of people that have just said, forget it. We don't believe in it.
Well, they don't have to believe in it, but it exists. And it's kind of like, I used to tell people, I don't believe in these things. Like, well, you don't have to believe in doing it, but it's real. And the CRM has to be a non-negotiable, and CEOs and small businesses, senior managers and larger businesses, they get what they tolerate. And if they don't expect and they don't demand CRM adherence, you're not going to get it.
Yep.
The other thing is there's a mindset that people have to be aware of. You'll get it in some owners, some CEOs, and some managers where they'll say, I'm not here to babysit. I'm just here to help, or I'm here to support. And when it comes to salespeople or sales development people, there are a handful of unicorns out there where your job is just to get out of the way and let them go. But by and large, the job of leadership when it comes to supporting and working with salespeople is coaching, because they should be better 1 year after they start with you than they are on day one. And they should be better year two than they are year one. And it's not going to happen on its own.
Yep.
It's going to take focus.
You hit on something. The unicorn that can truly go run and can be 100% autonomous and deliver results.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that unicorn. I'm sure you have, but my example earlier on the guy I've hired is a project manager mindset, right? He's a high detail. He's very systems and focused. I know without a shadow of a doubt that if we stay committed to building the cookbook and building the system, he'll continue to feed it and he will survive and thrive. But I've got to coach him. I've got to train him. And I've got somebody who I know can get there, but we've all got to lean into making sure that they're successfully onboarded instead of I'm a quick start, right? So I'm assuming he's got it. But I find myself reviewing the culture index, his against mine, and go, okay, this is what I would do. This is what you would do. Is that right? Am I on the right track? Okay, great. We need to spend time focusing on this because I'm assuming you know it.
Yeah.
But we've got to build it before you know it.
One thing to be aware of with people who are very detail oriented is their perfectionism will keep them from starting. It 100%. Will keep because they want it perfect. And there's a point at which you got to push them out of the nest and say, you'll figure it out. You won't hit the ground. So let me go back. So the managers and the CEOs, if it's a CEO of a small business, and I say small, like it's usually under 10 million in revenue, usually 5, where they don't have a full-time manager, they need to coach their people. They need to motivate those people or know what motivates them. And I think that's going to come to something you and I are going to talk about in a minute with contest. But they need to know how those people are motivated, what their motivational style is. Not everybody's motivated by more money. Not everybody's motivated by trips. Not everybody's motivated by external competition. So you got to know that. Then they've got to be able to hold them accountable. And accountability is usually to doing the right things. And sometimes it's to taking risks with sales. So I usually see the people, you know who drives price increases? CEOs. It's not salespeople, because salespeople are like, oh, we can't raise price, right? So they need to do those three things, and then they need to be really good to some degree at mentoring those people and helping them grow in their career so that they can level up to the next level, right?
100%.
Because if you're going to
spend a lot of time on that. Just like my job as a leader is to lead you in this business, but also lead you in your career. And someone gave me that opportunity, Jason Littman, 20 years ago.
Wow.
To see what it's like to be a leader and what it's like to have an opportunity to progress through your business and your life. And if I'm not helping you get from one step in life, how can I reasonably think that you're going to be interested in getting one step in this business together? So anyway, that's a very good point, is to see further than just their role in their day-to-day as a BD rep or sales rep.
Yeah.
You said motivation. I always, give me some examples of ways you, because I always think money, I think a thing, a Yeti cooler, a trip on a cruise. What are some other motivations that you've seen that, are maybe right for one person, not for the other?
Some people are motivated by recognition, external recognition and validation. Some just want to be satisfied that they're growing, that they're learning, that they're doing a good job. And you need to know what the tendency is. Another interesting motivator is some people love to win. Others hate to lose. I'm a hate to lose person. So I like winning. My kids, if I coach them in a sport and we lose, I hate it. Okay. Here's another one. Some people need external pressure, and some will put pressure on themselves. Some want to be closely managed. Like they want a lot of connection with their boss, their manager. Some manage, some don't. They're like, hey, let me go. And managers,
so what is it? How do you figure that out? We sit down and I know if I ask you a question, you're going to tell me an answer, but you may not tell me the truth. Not that you're lying to me. I just didn't ask the question in a way to get the information in a way you could deliver it.
You could observe and pay attention. You can look at historical behaviors. I will use assessment tools with my clients to determine this before we hire people.
Give me an example. What do you use? What's the tool?
We use, so I like Culture Index geographically, holistically over the organization. For sales, I use Objective Management Group. And and I will pair them. I'll say, you like Culture Index? Great, stack it here. You like Colby? Great, stack it here. This will tell you one thing. This will tell you another. Because I want to know, are these people extrinsically motivated or are they intrinsically motivated? And the data says that 40% of people professionally selling, despite what most CEOs believe, are extrinsically motivated. They're not there. It's only 40%. So let's
Objective Management Group.
Yeah. So they've got a series of assessments and tools that are only for sales. And it's not personality based. Like you could be an axe murderer, you could be a weirdo. I don't know. But I know what's going to keep you from selling, and it's informed a lot of my work over the years.
Interesting. Because I'm a Colby fan. I've recently gotten into Culture Index. I find Culture Index being incredible, but it's expensive, bro. Like you got to have a big business that can cough up $10,000 to $15,000 a year on culture assessment. But once you use them, it's
you never go
really
back.
hard to cut. That's exactly right. I've got a guy right now. He will not cut that expense. We do it every 6 months. Everyone does it with the thing, blah, blah, blah. And dude, it's great. It's really, really great.
And what I do is what we're trying to do with Objective Management Group and that tool is when clients come on and they hire salespeople, I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's find out who's not going to make it and weed them out.
Yeah.
We're not going to weed out everybody, but we're going to get you really dadgum close to the pin.
Yep.
Because you're going to light a lot of money on fire otherwise. So
that's exactly right.
But you want to talk motivation.
I want to talk motivation and feedback. I think they're both similar. Okay. Or not similar, but they're interdependent in some capacity. So I'll let you take the ball there, either on feedback or motivation.
Well, with motivation, here's one of the biggest gaps. Most people don't know what motivates their people. Most leaders don't know. They assume I'm self-motivated. I think about my business 24/7. I'm driven. I'm working to prove my parents wrong or whatever, or change the world. And they never stop to say, hey, Matt's on my team. What does Matt really want?
Right.
Never happens. For those who do, it can be life-changing for the person who gets asked, because they start thinking, well, somebody cares. And then they start doing that work. And then two, the business wins because the business gets somebody who's more attached to their goals because they're thinking about them. A lot of people are running around just like one foot in front of the other. They're not focused on a goal. But if you
Let me give you an example of that. We
Yeah.
do a segue in front of all of our leadership meetings. We do a segue, which is a 5-minute kind of icebreaker, and we pick up a bunch of different topics. One of mine is on Monday morning at 7:45 with this mechanical company, and one of the people in the controller is a pilot. She's a recreational pilot. She flies her airplane.
Wow.
She flies all the time. I mean, how incredible would it be to set a motivation out there that gives her a new instrument or some sort of a access to a
Right.
air show somewhere or something like
Yes.
that would mean the world to her. And then we
Because
have a
she
topic to communicate. That's what she wants. That's
So
what
in
excites
terms,
her.
so like incentives, what I'll tell people is, hey, before you put a contest together, don't make it money, because when people get extra money, they do something responsible with it.
They put it in the bank.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
it's received
Yeah.
with some conditions. So like if you
Yeah.
get some extra money, you and your wife are like, well, we got paid, we got to do this. What you want to do is give people guilt-free experiences or things that they want but won't buy themselves.
Love that.
So for this woman, giving her $5,000, like paying for her to go fly a fighter jet or ride in one, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. She's going to be excited. She's going to love it. She's going to tell everybody. Let's pretend like fantasy camps. I don't know many people who go to those things, but some people do, right? They go to like
Yeah.
baseball
Huge.
camp.
Yeah.
Well, for you or me to say, hey, honey, we're going to go do this for 4 days. We want to spend time away from the family doing this thing, a little hard. If we win it, then there's no guilt associated.
Gotta go. Gotta do it.
Hey, I won this.
Company game.
There we go.
Company policy.
Right.
Yeah.
So
No, that's very, very good. So is there any way, and this is a rhetorical question a bit, I guess, but how to find out what motivates people? I mean, I know you have your objective management.
you could do that. I think the other way is like, you could ask,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of people who've paid attention to their team long enough, if they're asked the right questions, they'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. I see what's going on with that person, right? Like, look, my kids hate losing. At least two of my boys hate losing. They want to win,
from.
but they hate losing. And I see
Yeah.
it. Best story. Kids are playing I-9 sports. I don't know if your kids ever did
Love
I-9.
it. Oh, huge.
My 6-year-old, was he 5 at the time? He was 6. He's playing defense. Their team gets scored on, and my son is like chasing this kid into the end zone. And as the kid from the other team with the ball crosses the end zone, my son, who's 6 at the time, says, "What the hell was that?" And all the parents kind of look at me, and I'm like, "Well, what the hell was that? That was lousy defense."
Yeah, come on.
But
Exactly.
if you watch people and you're in social situations, you know what makes this hard? Remote work.
Yeah.
You don't get those normal in the rhythm of work touches that we would get. Like you and I aren't eating lunch together. We're not like, so we have to arrange these calls to learn about each other. It's a lot harder. So in office, you've got a lot of advantage.
You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it.
But you had a question about feedback. Talk to me about that.
Yes. I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned as my career goes on is to never assume that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And the only way you know if you're doing the right thing is to ask the question to the person that you're curious, your wife, your kids, your boss, your coworkers, and I try to close every one-on-one meeting with, you've got to give me one piece of feedback, Adam. And
that's great.
You've got to tell me something. That
Okay.
because what I'll never, a little quick segue. I let someone go at a company 3 or 4 years ago. She was there for 20 years, but it was time for her to move on. And I was the one that was responsible for letting her go.
Okay.
And there are some things I said that I don't think I handled the right way. I don't necessarily regret them, but I affected someone's life that day. And she gave me feedback, come full circle a year later on how I handled it. And it wasn't all positive, obviously.
Yeah.
But from that day, I was like, you know what? I'm going to finish every meeting with feedback and I'm going to request you give me something. Did I say that? Did I,
Right.
have I let you down? Am I giving you the responses? So, but as a leader, that's a acquired skill and you
Yeah.
have to be so intentional about it. But in the sales world, as your specialty, like how are you seeing feedback come through and,
It's
how do you stay
usually
honest?
not, and it's usually too late. So there's this mistaken belief, it's a myth, that they've got 20 years of experience so that it's compounded like an investment. And it
Right.
doesn't work like that. A lot of them are making the same mistakes today that they were 5 years ago and they were 10 years ago. So here's what has to happen. Managers have to say, am I committed to developing my people? And if they are, and they want to get a return and they don't want to have to fire an underperformer, they commit to pre-call planning and post-call debriefing. Now, as people move through their career, you might not do it with them every day, but the job of someone who manages sales is to coach the people. Pre-call plan, post-call debrief. Like, look, for your business, think about how much money is on the line for every sale. Salespeople will wing it, and it's not their fault. No one said, this is what we're doing. So when I work with companies,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, look, managers, you got a pre-call plan, you got a post-call debrief. And that's where we're going to live.
Yep.
And so if they will do that, the reps will get better. There are tools you can Avoma, Gong, where you can record calls and give feedback
Yep.
based on that. I'm a big fan. Some of my clients, I will listen to their sales calls. I'll give feedback. We'll give it to them and we'll say, run with it. And
So good.
that's what's got to happen.
And making it a habit or a pattern, and
Right.
almost like that's back to the scorecard, the measurement tool for the company, right?
Right.
I would have that be a measuring tool that's used
Yes.
to hold the manager and the managee accountable, so
Right.
that it's actually happening.
Absolutely.
In a lot of our businesses, there's there need to be two big contracts, like $2 to $10 million construction contracts.
Yeah.
There's got to be three people review a project quote before it goes out the door. I mean, the
Yeah.
estimating team's building it, but like we have a metric. It's like how many proposals went out,
Right.
how many people saw it, and it's not to gotcha. It's just doing that to make sure that we're doing what we know as the recipe that delivers the
Right.
final product.
Yeah.
So that's really, really impactful. How often do you suggest? How do you guys, your sales leaders, meet one-on-one with their teams? I mean, that's kind of an
I think
arbitrary question, but-
one-on-one, they should have a structured, focused one-on-one no less than twice a month. I recommend it's weekly. Some of it depends on the sales cycle and the frequency of opportunities.
right.
The
It's a
other-
high turn, quick, yeah.
One of the
transactional
best
business.
guys I saw in the world of financial services, which is a really tough business, this guy had 13 people on his team and he had a one-on-one with each of them each week. He said he would do them all on Monday. Now, this guy's got a high level of extroversion. He can handle that. I would want to pull my eyes out if I had to do 13 meetings on a day.
13 one-on-ones.
But he was very invested. So if you want your people to succeed, you spend time with them. You know what's going on in their lives. You know their motivators. You know what negatively motivates them. You know how they're performing. You know their skill gaps. You know where they need to change, because it's not just going to happen just because you hire them and give them an incentive system.
Yeah. Tell me how people can get a hold of you and sort of what your
Sure.
engagement looks like with folks. And if I've got a company they got a big sales org that wants
Yeah.
to get some additional sales training and oversight, how do people find you and how do your arrangements work?
I'm at the northwoodgrp.com. The Northwood group was already taken, but the northwoodgrp.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Adam P. Boyd, and people can reach me there. They can reach me. My email is adam@thenorthwoodgrp.com. So happy
And how
there.
do you work with folks? Would I come to you as a one-on-one? You work with sales teams? Is it
Mostly,
like a package thing, hourly?
we will do some executive development for senior leaders. But typically what we do is we put together a package for a sales organization. We typically start with an evaluation of the sales org. Here's where you are. Here are the challenges you're dealing with internally. Here are the root causes. And here's what you need to work on, whether with us or on your own. And then when we will work with sales managers. We'll work on sales process. We'll work on helping them be very clear on what deals they're going to win and which ones they're going to lose. And then we train the sales team. Sales team training usually is not the first thing. Most people think that's what they need. They think they need closing skills. Their people usually don't need closing skills. They need consultative selling and qualifying skills. They need skills that get them to decision makers rather than just how to ask the right question to close. But we do training. We put those programs together. That's kind of situational, like dependent upon budget, time, what they are, how long their sales cycle is. The real core of what we do is we really develop the managers to go to the next level, because then we impact the sales team. And then
that's so good.
We've got a lot of core material. I'm actually revising some of it right now to create our own workbook. We do a ton of customization and role play with the team to make them better. Managers got to do it. Reps got to do it. And then
that's awesome.
We go from there. So thanks for asking.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you, sir. Keep me posted on all the stuff. You're the man.
We will. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of this show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.